Today on the Unlocking Your Book podcast, we only can go as high as we are inspired. So inspiration and implementation have to go together. And when they come together, they actually bring transformation and change in your life. Typically, people have strengths on either side, and we're going to put those strengths together so that we can accomplish something. Be sure to get our mini workshop that unlocks you and your book. We have even included a 2-part session to write your first book chapter with our team so that you can get your message out to the people that need to hear it. Get immediate access to it all at unlockingyourbook.com. Years ago, I worked for a Fortune 100 company, and I was involved in week-long training sessions with store leaders. And typically, there were 2 groups of people that I would talk to. You had the people who could listen and talk and think that they'd accomplished something. So they could sit in a room and talk theory and be inspired and feel as though they had a good day's work. And then you had other people who had to get something done tangibly in order to feel productive. And so when I identified those things, it actually helped people with differing strengths to be able to engage with whatever's going on. And I used to share this with them. A teeter-totter takes 2 people to make it work. And I showed them some of these equations. If all you do is get inspired, but you fail to implement what you've been inspired to do, you're stepping into self-deception. You think that you've become something that you have not yet. I think this is the plague of the church often. We go to conferences, we go to sermons, we feed ourselves, the Lord feeds us, but then we don't put our works into action. And so we end up thinking our marriage is better because we went to a marriage conference. No, we've just gathered some information that we now have to implement into a marriage. You can see the other examples. Second equation is that if all we do is do, but we're not inspired to go higher, we end up limiting how high we can actually go. Or only can go as high as we are inspired. So inspiration and implementation have to go together. And when they come together, they actually bring transformation and change in your life. And so whether you are a person that loves to talk, you love to be inspired, or whether you're like, come on, let's get something done, we're going to put those 2 things together today in this short session. And then next week is when a lot of that implementation happens. This is purposely built in that this is a week of inspiration for you to get full up, and then for all of us to then take what we've learned and how we've been inspired this week and put it into practice next. So for those of you, depending on where you're at, typically people have strengths on either side, and we're going to put those strengths together so that we can accomplish something. You'll notice that God creates things in pairs. You have grace and truth, faith and works. Jesus is the Alpha and the Omega. He's the lion, he's the lamb. We have to give, but we also need to receive. You have intimate worship, you have high praise. We're called to shine our light, yet we're also called to be humble. But in my work with people tend to sit on one side more than the other. In the process of writing a book, it's important that you can embrace both of those sides, and where you are not strong, that you find strength from other people, from other resources, additional training, etc. But this is the story of Matthew 7, where Jesus talks about the importance of not only listening, but putting something into practice and following his words. And you'll notice that in this, both people had floods and storms and winds, but it's the person who put the words of Christ into practice whose house stood firm. And so that's what we're wanting to make sure that we're doing, is not only be inspired. So results happen when you combine paired strengths. So because we want you to activate on all the inspiration you've received this week, so what we want to identify, or what I'm hoping to activate today, is to help you to see the strengths that you have to accomplish the mission of writing a book. Now, the book is just a tool toward a greater cause, but getting the book accomplished is an important part of fulfilling the broader mission of what God has for your life. I would like to identify your strengths to complete the mission. They're important to know so that you know what your strengths are to write this book. I'd like to give you a perspective on strengths. If you've ever heard of a strengths-based approach, I'll use this analogy. If you're a parent and your child came home from school and gave you his or her report card and you saw 2 A's, 2 B's, a C, and a D, where would you focus the next semester? So 2 A's, 2 B's, a C, and a D. Where would you spend most of your time? Now, for a lot of people who grew up in more of a you need to fix your weaknesses approach to business and success, they would say you need to fix that D and the C. But a strengths-based approach says you need to bring that D up to a C. The C probably can stay where it is, but let's really see what we can get the most out of and take these areas of where you've succeeded in A's and B's, and let's see if we can take those even higher. And so with a strengths-based approach, I want to encourage you that you will get farther maximizing your strengths than if you simply try to work on your weaknesses. So I want to help you identify what strengths do you have to complete the mission and writing the book. What strengths do you feel that you have that will help you on this journey of writing a book? What are you good at? Now, a false humility would be stopped and would feel a little awkward trying to say some things that you're good at. But these are things that it's important for you to recognize. These are things that God himself recognizes. And the reason why you're a part of this group is because you do recognize that you have some strengths. So it's really important to identify what strengths do you have to write a book, to complete the mission that God has given to you. On the other hand, what are some areas that you might need some help? Or who are some people that you could reach out to for help, for some prayer and some support? Identify some of those gaps that you realize that you would like to get some help for. I want to make sure everyone knows that you have the Unlocking Your Book course, the team and community to help you wherever you may need help. So I hope that's a great deal of comfort and excitement that you have that kind of support. Again, you don't have to do this yourself, and the Write Your Book course and team and us as mentors, we are going to put you on a very specific path for this. But I also would like for you to have some things that may fall outside of what we ask you to do. I'll give you some ideas. Maybe you do not have a great place to work and you need to rearrange a room and find a good desk. Maybe you need to talk to a spouse or to a friend and get permission to be working on this project or get their blessing or involve other people in letting them know that you're about to write and you'd like their support in whatever way that they could be supportive. It might be to make sure that you have Google Docs or Microsoft Word or some kind of software. Nothing fancy. You don't have to do anything fancy, but maybe there's some computer or technology things that are going to be helpful for you so you're not trying to type things out on your telephone or a small little iPad. So this is something very practical that you can do today, that you could do this week, next week. All right, the last thing we're going to do is pray. You've received a lot of prayer from some wonderful people, but at the end of the day, really is our ability to connect with God on our own and ourselves and to have help. So we're going to take time right now just for us to take just a few minutes. You've identified things that you must remember, things that you want to do, areas of strengths that you have, areas where you're going to need some help. And I'd like for you to turn all that into a conversation with the Lord. Is God calling you to write a book? There's a 2-part session to write your first book chapter with our team. Visit unlockingyourbook.com for more information.